Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video I'm going to be doing a starter guide for Gold Mythic Hengyen, who is of course the latest exclusive character to join the Mythic market. He is potentially a really good damage dealer for anyone who requires a damage dealer in their roster, and he'll be able to utilize a big amount of weapons and one that is quite accessible to everybody in the game at the moment. So there's quite a lot to aim for, especially if you're a returning player or a newer player. This is actually going to be quite a lot of fun to just aim for this character and the weapon, and you're going to have a really nice combo at the end of it. Now, I'm going to be just going over the basics of his abilities, but we're mainly going to be looking at the combat mods, weapon options, so on and so forth. If you want to see how this character technically works, I have done a full preview of this character when it was first released. You can check that out in the top right hand corner. But let's get into this little starter guide now. Now, while this character is very accessible in the Mythic market, I know some people won't be able to pick him up to LB3 straight away. When it comes to his rush, I would say grade 5 is very important just because of the upgrade to the AP bonus, where he'll get extra attack because of the AP of the enemy. That is actually quite nice. Obviously, the higher the grade, the more stats you're going to get as well. LB2 obviously is better because it will make it 100% attack boost. But I'd say grade 5 minimum on terms of usability for the rush. And honestly, I'd never level up a character that is not grade 5 because you get less level up points in the level up tournaments if they're not grade 5. If we look at the signature move, I would say it probably goes to LB1 as the minimum. The extra 100 crit is nice, but LB1 for the signature move. So far so good. You haven't had to get too many copies to make this guy at least semi-usable. I would definitely say LB3 is the way to go in the end, but just kind of in the meantime. And then if we look at the passives, you can see I fully maxed out. I think one of the better passives is very early on, grade 1 and grade 3, dwindling protection. That's to stop the reflect from payback and bide and so forth. And that is 100% reduction on the first character you will attack, which we'll show a little bit later. Grade 5, you get the first half of press the attack and explosive opening. But I would say that explosive opening is very nice. You get the second half of it at LB3, make it 100% chance that he gets 20% crit for each living enemy, and that would be a lot of damage off of turn 1 because there's 5 enemies alive. So this is obviously the thing to aim for, LB3. When it comes to these passives, I would say the two passives that are most important are explosive opening and the dwindling protection. The other ones are nice. Press the attack is nice. When he kills an enemy, he gets attack bonus. That is nice, and so's agility. But those aren't the things that are going to make his kit really work. Those are the things that are just bonuses to make him do more damage, which of course is nice, but I wouldn't say they're the priorities to upgrade. But I would eventually try and make everything maxed out to get the best out of Heng Yen if you intend to use him. More damage at the end of the day is always good. So moving on to the mods, I have been asked what is the best set to use for this character. Is it attack set or is it crit set? I would 100% use crit set. This basically means that every time he hits a crit, he will hit harder because he's got crit multiplier set. That means your crits hit for more damage, and 100% this is the way to go. He has a guaranteed crit on his rush, and he has a really high crit chance due to the buff that he's going to get from his first turn signature move, where he gets 200 crit rating, and this is going to pass into that actual signature move, so you'll get a better chance to hit crits there and on any upcoming basic attack. So 100% go for crit set. You're just going to hit harder with those crits. Now in the top left hand corner, I would 100% go with attack here. If you've got a mod like this, a Paragon mod, great. Get your highest percentage platinum in here. It doesn't really matter as long as it's attack here. It's always going to be better than the gold. So as long as you've got better than gold, you're always going to be good. But if you can get something like a Paragon mod up here, this is a character that relies on that massive hit off of turn 1 more than pretty much any other character due to how this character's kit actually works. That passive, the explosive opening one, it basically means that that first initial attack he does is the highest damage he's going to do in the entire fight. So you want to make that as powerful as possible, with the most attack as possible, with the most crit multiplier as possible, so on and so forth. Now when it comes to the attack versus, this is the only really big debatable thing. I think at this point we have got a lot of characters. You've got a lot of damage dealers that you've got accessible. We had Kenny in the previous Mythic market. We had Easter Eva as well. So I think a lot of people do have a few damage dealers. I think what you should start to do is try and make one-dimensional teams where you have a character that basically counters a current meta team, because people can use up to 4 defenses, tower defense plus 3 on their war defenses. So rather than trying to mod this character to be the same as all the other characters you've got, try and make this character very specific to a very specific team that you're actually noticing A, you're facing, and B, maybe you're struggling against. For me, for instance, I have Agent 46, and I was using him against alpha teams, and he's really good. And I think if you're free to play, Heng Yen can pretty much do the same thing. So you can pretty much gear this character out against alpha teams if you so wish. But he's also really good against payback characters, which you don't necessarily see on alpha teams at the moment. There may be another payback character coming out in the future, a vengeance character. We'll have to wait and see. But with the actual characters that are involved right now, it's Jesus 2000 and it is Peacekeeper. Now, Peacekeeper can be on an alpha team, but most of the time he's on the Rick teams. So, it's up to you how you want to use this. It's based on the rest of your roster, honestly. But personally, I would always go with attack versus blue here, because, like I said, you want to be able to make this guy hit the hardest possible that he can off of turn 1 against one individual target. And he's got base attack versus blue because he's a fast character. So going with attack versus tough, it's going to amplify that even further, making that first initial hit even harder. And that first initial hit is, like I said, the most important. Now, in the next slot, we are going to have to decide what is actually best. I did test this character out a little bit, and initially I went with stun resist, because I was feeling like I was going to test this guy out against Rick teams, and then someone snuck a Lao Po into a Rick team, and then I was instantly taunted, and he was taunt looped for a very long time. Taunt is horrendous. Now, you can kind of get past this to a certain extent, but I wouldn't necessarily think that would be the way to go in Heng Yen. Stopping taunt is probably a good idea, just making it so you don't get taunted. Let him have the freedom to attack off of turn 1. But if you're using him against alpha teams, like I said before, you want to use his signature move, you've got a problem, because he needs to have actual daze resist here. And even worse, alpha is a control character, so it will reduce any mod you have by 40%. So even if you have a Paragon mod, it's 50-50 if you're actually going to resist that daze. So I'm going to go with taunt resist just to get around the potential taunts on certain defense teams. And as you can see, I've got the 3-slot bonus where my crits will now hit for 40% extra damage. This is the crit side of damage. So for instance, if I do hit someone for 100 and then I would crit them for 200, the extra damage is 100, so I should do 40 more damage because of that. And it's 40 for every 100 I do. And if you hit for thousands, it's going to be thousands on the extra crit damage. Now, the bottom left-hand corner, I think, is pretty straightforward, because we want to hit as hard as possible. We will 100% go with a crit multiplier. In here, one of these ones, you get extra crit damage. It works exactly the same as the actual set, and they stack together. And when they don't stack together as a pure number, they just like one after the other come in. So it actually multiplies a little bit with each other. So it should, escalate it even higher. So using this one with the set bonus is actually the best thing to do if you want to get the best out of crit damage. This is going to make that crit number go up nice and high. If you have a Paragon mod, I think it goes up to 75%. I have got one, it's on someone else, but Heng Yen would be 100% a good person to use that mod on. So we've got one more mod to go, and I think this is basically where you decide where you want to use this character. The only mod so far that is debatable is maybe the bottom right-hand corner, and it really depends on the defense teams you're going to come up against. If you come up against a team and you consistently are getting control in a certain way, switch to that control resist. It's just as simple as that. Try and use that control resist, see if that makes your attacks more viable. Taunt is just annoying in itself, but if you, for instance, are getting impaired non-stop for whatever reason, then you might want to switch to impair. I would say on all the actual controls, I would say impair is not that big a deal for Heng Yen. Most of his power is actually, strangely enough, in his signature move. His rush is good, but his signature move, it can be crazy. Now, you could go one of two ways on this last one. You can go for another resist. For instance, I could put Daze Resist in here and use him against alpha teams and a little bit against Rick teams. If you wanted to use him against more teams, I would say using Daze Resist is good, where I would just isolate the tough character straight away, and I would do obviously extra damage to them. Because of his specialist skill, Waste Not, it would do the excess damage to the adjacent characters regardless of their trait. It would do the same damage, because it doesn't matter, because it's the damage you do to the selected target, and then the over damage effectively with Waste Not would just go to any trait who's adjacent. So it doesn't matter if you don't have trait damage there. This could be a resist. Like I say, Daze could be a good option, like I say, if you're going to come against Alpha. Or you could go with another attack versus Fast, Strong, or you could go with Alert. Now, I'd say the two options that are obvious are either going to be Fast or Alert. You could try and use this guy against Jesus 2000. He can target Jesus 2000 off of turn 1 and take him out because he hits him twice with the signature move. Jesus 2000 is going to be a bit more tanky because I think he has a defense buff off the start, but he definitely can be taken out straight away. Or with the attack versus alert, you can primarily use this character against those Rick defense teams. So I'm going to go with attack versus alert for the meantime, but this is the one that is going to be obviously completely up to you, where your roster's at, what characters you're going to use this character with, and also what characters you're going to be attacking this character with. The only thing I'd say is really important is the attack versus tough, and we're just about to see why, because if that initial hit is crazy high, you select a tough character, the adjacent characters just deleted. It's just, they're simply just gone. So I lock this in and you can see now my attack stat has gone up to 44,464, and my 5-slot bonus on the quick damage is plus 70%, but don't forget I had around 45 or 50% in the bottom left hand corner auxiliary mod, and that's going to be some extra crit damage as well there. Now when it comes to the amount of damage that Heng Yen's going to do, a lot of it is going to rely on the weapon that you use, and I'd say he has actually got quite a lot of options to actually utilize. First up is going to be his base weapon, which isn't terrible. If you're brand new to the game, you just can do 3 5% attack boosts on that first slot, and you've got a decent weapon here. This is actually not too bad at all until you get like a slightly better weapon, which there is one accessible. We're going to talk about it in a second. But this weapon's not too bad off a base. It doesn't need too much work to get good either. The 50% chance the double attack will work on his signature move, which is nice, his basic attacks, and his rush. So he has a chance to do extra damage on those because of this weapon. Next up is a bit of a basic extra attack versus characters with more than 50% HP. This is going to further boost the actual damage he's going to do off of turn 1 with that signature move. He also has a 1535 on here, so again, he's going to have a better chance to crit. It's going to stack with his 200% crit buff for the rest of combat, and he's going to get the extra 15% attack off of base. This multiplies with teammates, so if he's surrounded by these, he's obviously going to get a higher attack stat. 45% attack at the top isn't amazing, but it is what it is. The higher attack stat, the better, obviously, is going to be good for Heng Yen. This one's mainly to amplify the first turn signature move, so I'd say this is probably a slightly better base as guarantee than his base weapon, because his base weapon only has a 50% chance to actually proc the double attack. If it happens, it's nice, but if it doesn't, then there's not much you can do. Whereas this is guaranteed to happen as long as the character has more than 50% HP, and off of turn 1, that is everybody. Now there's also the potential to use him with a 20% AP weapon, and if you team him up with Laura, he can do a signature move and rush off of turn 1. This potentially could be useful in the future, but it will drastically reduce his actual turn 1 damage on the signature move. It can be good if you're only trying to focus potentially one character and not utilize the massive amount of damage that he can get out for waste not. Obviously, it's up to you how you want to do this, but personally, I don't think he's that kind of character. I think he's a character just to like utilize the waste not and that first turn advantage. And that's where the faction assault weapon comes in. This is like the creme de la creme weapon for Heng Yen, in my opinion. Massive amount of attack, 55%. Also, the improved 45% attack that the other weapon had, but this one, it's when they're over 35% HP, not when they're over 50%. This can make a difference against characters like Jesus, because sometimes it can take 2 attacks to take him out, because obviously we have got a fast character in Heng Yen. And the second hit has just got more chance of proccing here because it's got a bigger variance to actually proc with it. As long as they've got over 35% HP, this is going to proc every time. And then the last one will proc regardless, and it bypasses defense bonuses. And this means that the defense buff that Jesus has will just be completely ignored, which is obviously really good if you're trying to focus Jesus in particular, but it doesn't really matter who you're attacking. If they've got a defense buff, it just doesn't exist. He's also just going to get straight up an extra 35% damage. One extra weapon that may be worth noting is this one, because he is going to be critting quite a lot, even off that first turn signature move with the extra crit. He will do in pairs when he does this. This could be good, potentially, just because of the characters you're facing. So for instance, if you've got Peacekeeper and Eris in a line, you could nuke Peacekeeper with that first turn signature move. If it crits, it will proc this weapon and impair the line, which would include Eris. And then the waste not damage would probably take out Eris as well, but she'd be already impaired and wouldn't gain any AP. The only issue you've got is, I'm not sure if that's going to be viable in terms of actually doing heavy amounts of damage compared to the weapons that give boost based on the enemy's HP. But you could definitely test this out to see if you could get it that way. If you can get his base attack up really high based on other characters, or get an early attack buff on him, that could be good as well. For instance, if you use Dale and some strong characters, you're going to get a nice attack buff for any character in the team. But for this video, I'm going to be using this weapon because I think, like I said, this is the creme de la creme weapon. It's the best you can get. And if you can get your hands on this for Fraction Assault, it's going to work great in Heng Yen's hands. High attack, extra bonuses on the other slots. I'm also going to be using this team here. Another thing you can work towards right now is getting Christmas Carol. And Christmas Carol is great with Heng Yen because she gives camouflage to the entire team. And Heng Yen, you can focus a payback off of turn 1. Heng Yen can get away with it for free. The teammates will too because of the camouflage. Very nice indeed. We also have Easter Eva in this team because she has a defense down procs off of turn 1 that land on tanks, and it's an 80% chance. On a lot of the time, obviously, the person who is a tank on a defense team is a payback. This will just mean extra damage for Heng Yen, but also Easter Eva is just good just to take out characters as well. Okay, so here we are attacking a Rick defense team, and we are coming up against 2 paybacks. This is obviously generally problematic, but because we've got someone who can normalize, we can kind of play chess in this case where we know the first move is going to attack Peacekeeper and maybe going to take him out with the minus 50% defense. It should happen. I can do the normalize onto the Jesus and make it so that if the second hit comes down here, we don't have too much of a problem. If I did obviously gear my Heng Yen to take out Jesus, I could have targeted him, but we're going to target the Peacekeeper up the top. We're going to use the signature move first off. You're going to see the damage come out, and you're going to see quite a lot of characters get taken out. That's how he works. It's obviously, I like it. It's fantastic. And we can just take out the remaining character here and just get through the rest of the team. Now, the problem you've got now, of course, is Heng Yen will not reduce the reflect damage as much. We'll see if the normalize got removed off of Jesus. It didn't, but if it did, obviously, it'll be a problem for Heng Yen if I did some attacks, because it would reduce it by, I believe, only 40%, because it's 20% for each character alive. This is obviously a big problem, but in this case, not so much, thankfully. Now, we did find an alpha team, and the things that is obviously great about alpha teams is they don't have as much bonus HP, generally speaking. They could have had it where the Davy would do turn 1, but they didn't. But I've run into the issue where I've been dazed. I didn't take Daze Resist. I am now paying for it. But the basic attacks will still do pretty decent damage, and this is because of the fact that I'm doing damage based on the character's HP. That was a non-crit, I believe. I think that was a non-crit. So, yeah, pretty decent indeed. And we can just take out the character nice and simple. Obviously, we got lucky with the stun proc on Trader down here. Unfortunately, we've got to wait a bunch of turns. So if you are trying to target someone like Alpha, I would say that this isn't the way to go because, you know, Daze Resist is a must. Daze Resist is a must. We did get attacker against him. Okay. The revive comes in. That's not a problem, actually. That's quite beneficial for us. That's quite beneficial. Because I think the stun did land down here again. Now I can target him with the Adrenaline Rush, and it should take out him and the adjacent characters, which is obviously very nice indeed. Very nice indeed. And then we have the Eva Rush just from natural. I think Eva and Heng Yen, maybe the team up there is actually pretty nice. Whether you want to use that is up to you. So this was just a little starter guide for Heng Yen. I do think he isn't like the most straightforward character to use, but his potential is really nice. It is a good free-to-play character, and there is a great weapon available in Faction Assault right now to pick up to work with him. You saw the damage output that Adrenaline Rush had on that team, where it took out 3 characters. They also had a bit of bonus HP when that happened as well. The Adrenaline Rush targeted with that 100% attack is nuts. So yeah, it's a guaranteed crit as well. Obviously that can be resisted, but there's a guaranteed crit potential just because of how the rush works. I think this character is actually going to be a lot of fun. I will use him in an upcoming war stream, guys, just so I can get a little bit more gameplay of him. People can see me using him for like a longer period of time rather than just 2 separate attacks. But I think he's pretty good. I'm going to come up with some team ideas. I'll try and build a more free-to-play based team, and maybe either release a video on that, or I will just use that in an upcoming war, like I say. But do tell me your thoughts on Heng Yen, how you plan to build him, what characters and teams you plan to build him against. Let me know in the comments down below, guys. That is the end of my video. I want to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.